It's Monday, which means it's time for another Agree or Disagree, a series that kind of probably divides the F1 community online and, of course, on YouTube as well. We love hearing your opinions. If you're new to this kind of episode and this is the first time of you watching Agree or Disagree, basically what we do is that we post a tweet out asking for your F1 opinions. You send them in, we pick 6 roughly, or if I have a guest, 4, and then we kind of pick 6. We debate them and just go whether we agree or disagree and give our reasons why every single Monday at 6 p.m. UK time, unless it was last week, in which case it was Tuesday, but that was only a one-off. So we've got 6 more opinions from you guys this week over on Twitter. As always, thank you so much to everyone who did send in their opinions. If yours didn't get chosen, commiserations. However, you could be in for next week, because this week we do have a one that did make an appearance in last week's opinions list, but it didn't quite make the cut for the video last Tuesday. So let's jump straight into it, and Lyle, you're going to come up with the first opinion of the episode, and what is it?
Well, the first one comes in from a regular on our channel, Shadow Maka, and he says the Rainbow Pirelli tyres were actually really good and they should come back. The Pirelli tyres that were rainbow colour were ran in the 2018 season. Now, of course, Pirelli have different colours, so you can tell which tyre compounds are being used. But this year, they went for a lot, going from the super hard all the way down to the hyper soft. Now, I'm just going to run through quickly what they are. You have the orange for super hard, the blue compound for hard, which also was weird because you have the wet compound, the wet tyres for the wet compound, which are also blue. The white mediums, the yellow soft, the red super soft. Now, this is when it gets confusing. The purple ultra softs and the pink hyper soft, and then also the grey. I can't believe it's not soft. So to that I say agree.
I'm going to say disagree straight away.
I said they're also about the eccentric amount of colours, but also the amount of different compounds that you could use. So of course you've got the 2 wet weather compounds, but no one really cares about that. When it's a wet race, to be honest, tyres aren't really on the manifest. No one really, bats an eyelid about them. And it's also intermediate and wet. It's been like that basically since the start of Formula 1. So you've been through loads of Bridgestone, Dunlop, all that, and it's basically stayed exactly the same. The dry weather compound is obviously when it has changed. Pirelli introduced this, it was only about a few years ago. I think it was about the turn of the V8, really, that they really started to step up their game. Colour coordinated their tyres, brought in different compounds. But this year, 2018, was a massive year when the compound just basically took a massive splash, and it was like a rainbow splash at us all, with all those different compounds. We're seeing now Formula 1, it's all about different strategies and stuff. Of course, we see pit stops. It is really cool to see drivers come in for pit stops. You see great pit stops, for example, like China 2019, when Mercedes did the double stacking. It's absolutely incredible, that, so crisp, incredible. Lewis comes in, then Valerie. Team pit stop does 2 basically for the price of 1, when Ferrari sometimes can't even do 1 for the price of 1. Just to see those amount of different tyre compounds was really great. It just gave you, from a fan's perspective, it gave you more of a chance to kind of see the different strategies. And for example, one team might be doing a hyper soft run, and then another team might be doing a super soft run. That would be really, really cool, instead of just the standard, the standard hard, medium and soft compound, when you kind of already know what they're going to go on to. It just adds another level of excitement into F1. I mean, I'm not saying everyone is a strategy, everyone likes the strategies. Some people just like to see the on-track racing, and yes, I have said before that I'd like to get away sometimes from the pit lane, scratching your head kind of thing. I just want to see the hard, physical, fun, dynamic driving, which obviously we're all used to. But this just left another element of fun. The strategy. When a car would come in, you'd think, oh, what's he going to go on to? What colour tyres is he going to leave with? It also, of course, made it a lot harder for people to keep track of what colours it was. So, for example, Ultra Soft and Hyper Soft, from purple to pink, were very, very similar. Sometimes you would get a bit confused. I also remember actually some of the commentators used to get confused as well. I mean, even All Reliable, David Croft, would sometimes mix up the colours. And, of course, if he can't really get through his head that it's called Racing Point now, and next year it's going to be called Aston Martin, then I really don't think we should be going back to these colour compound tyres. It made it harder for us to keep track. So from the colour point of view, I'm like, to see some pretty colours, I'd rather go to somewhere else that has a few pretty colours. But for the tyres, for the different compounds, I thought it was quite good. I thought it was just another level of strategy that was added in. I wouldn't be against it coming back, but it is a little bit more simple Formula 1 now that it's just like the 3-4 compounds and obviously the 2 wets. It is more simple, but I like this because it was a different level of more strategy involved in the racing, and also it gave the drivers more of a chance to say what they wanted. So for example, Bono comes on the radio, says Lewis, we're going to go to soft, but now in 2018 even, he had the chance of 3 softs, the ultra soft, the hyper soft, the super softs, or the I can't believe it's not soft. So I like that, and that's why I'm going to say agree, but it is a little bit with a pinch of salt. Also, in his statement there about the rainbows, I'm like, go and look at some pretty colours. Where they have pretty colours in an art room. You probably had some at primary school, so for the tyre compounds, yes, but for the colours, no. John, you said disagree. Why do you think, is it too complicated? Could you not work out the colours on the cars? Was it like a mind boggle? And again, if people still can't, if people still mix up the pink racing point from the Force India, do we just need this headache removed, and putting this back in F1 would just be like ridiculous?
Well, there's a lot of headaches in Formula 1, isn't there? Like you just said there about the whole race at Point Force India farcical. Then now we've got the AlphaTauri Toro Rosso one, so that's going to get very confused, and then throwing a bit of Aston Martin in there for good measure. So yeah, it's quite good, isn't it, about this whole confusing world of Formula 1. But pretty much what you said there about the whole confusion thing, I understood the tyre compounds as well. I did like the idea of mixed strategy, that you could obviously, if you're like relatively new to Formula 1, basically, well, back in 2018 when they had the rainbow tyres, you got given really 3 choice of dry compounded tyres to take to a Grand Prix, then of course the 2 wet compound tyres, and then you can kind of choose your strategy. Really, you get like a set amount of each tyres. A driver would choose their tyres before race weekend, and allocated, so like they would choose more of the softer compounded tyres because they are the quicker tyres, then of course least of the harder compounded tyres. It did mix strategy up, and I did like that. But for newer fans, I think it would have been very confusing. If you're a casual F1 fan, or if you're just trying to get into watching Formula 1, and you're seeing all these different colours on your screen about what tyres are what, like the hyper soft, the super soft, the soft, like the hards, the super hards. What's going? Why is there so many options? And I think that could put a lot of people off from watching it, because if you're trying to get into a sport, or if you just stumble across a sport, let's say, and you don't understand how that sport works, you're not going to show any interest. So, for example, like with me, with cricket, I'm not a fan of cricket because I don't know how the game works. So I won't watch it. So that could be cricket's fault. It just could be my dumb brain fault. The latter definitely. But you know what I mean? Like that, it could just put a lot of people off from watching Formula 1. And in 2019, they did come up with the whole soft, medium, hards, red wall, yellow wall, or white wall. But they kind of added in more complications by going C1, C2, and C3, which is like the rainbow tyres, but they're just called C1, C2, and C3. I think C1 with a harder compound, C5 with the softest. I think that's how it is, or it could be the other way around. I'm not too sure. You see what I mean? Even like an F1 fan like me, it gets a bit confusing. Just have soft, medium, or hard. One of the things I did like when F1 brought in, well, when they did do some rule changes in 16, was obviously that knockout qualifying format was an utter disaster. They did add in the whole extra choice of tyres to bring to a Grand Prix weekend, so you can have the softer compound, the medium compound, or the harder compound, and you could choose which one. You can go from soft to hard, or hard to mediums, and it just added that different element of strategy, and I really enjoyed that.
Which we discussed all the way back in episode 5, Jordan. That's one of the break in there. Episode 5, was it episode 4? Episode 4.
We talked about in
episode 4. My God, we're on episode 170 of the F1 debate show now, I think, and then it's like episode 4. We talk about that. God.
Crazy, wasn't it? It seems like so long ago. But like I said, I do like the whole different type of strategy, but I think for newer fans, it just wouldn't appeal to them. It could kind of put people off. So for that reason, I would say disagree. So the next one comes in from, here we go, DRKNZ14 Fizzy. I think that's how you go about saying your name. Not good with their pronunciations. Do you see what I mean? He says, Antonio Giovinazzi, Gio is going to beat Raikkonen this season quite heavily if he manages to keep his pace from the end of last season. So I think it was from the Belgian Grand Prix onwards, before the Belgian Grand Prix, Giovinazzi was nowhere near Kimi. Like, Kimi just whitewashed him essentially. And towards the end of the season, Giovinazzi did find his feet. He did get a couple of points on the board. And he did show a bit of a challenge to Kimi Raikkonen, of course, a well experienced driver been in the sport since 2001 and had them 2 years out between 2010 and 2011. Giovinazzi is going to beat Raikkonen. I'm going to have to say disagree on that one again.
Wow. I'm going to say agree.
It's definitely split in this one. Normally we're quite agreement with one another, Lyle. So I think Giovinazzi does have the ability to beat Raikkonen. I'm not doubting Giovinazzi whatsoever. He does need to kind of improve himself, that he can go on, like he can be an established F1 driver and keep up the consistent results from start to finish, and not just dip from form like he had done in 2019. You know, he had a bit of a dodgy start and then found his feet towards the end of the season. Like Sauber, sorry, do you see what I mean about names? Do you see what I mean about names? Alfa Romeo were like they're a driver. They're a team that need a driver that can get them results week in, week out, to put a challenge into their rivals like AlphaTauri, Racing Point, Renault, those kind of teams. And of course, if Giovinazzi isn't doing that, then they're not going to employ him. He won't be there. But Raikkonen is let's face it, he is a good driver. He's a well experienced driver, and even though he didn't quite have the pace to be at a top team like we're seeing on his return to Ferrari, he has kind of found a bit. You can see old Raikkonen in the Alfa Romeo, and he did a solid job there. He scored some really decent points, and then again he had his moments, but the car sometimes let him down. Kimi himself let him down, but he said it himself. He's not bothered. He's here for a hobby, and yeah, God only knows when Kimi Raikkonen is going to retire. It could be this season, it could be next season, or it could be never at all. But I think for me, I think Raikkonen, he's not pushing to stay for next season, nor is he pushing for a title. He's just driving for the fun of it. And I think when you don't have that pressure, you bring out your better self. And like I said, Raikkonen's 40-year-old. He's not bothered about all that anymore. He's not proving to other teams, look what I can do. He's proven himself. He's not bothered anymore, and he's just using all of the experience. He's just having a bit of fun. And I think for me, because of his experience, and he is, I would say, quite quicker than Giovinazzi. I think for me, Kimi Raikkonen would beat Giovinazzi on that matter, and I think Giovinazzi as well, he knows that there is a possible chance of him moving to Ferrari in the next couple of years. So that alone could add in a bit of him overperforming. So, I mean, I could be wrong with that, but I think when a driver is on the brink of trying to go to Ferrari in the future, some of them, it has kind of seeked out a bit of weakness in them. And, we've kind of seen a big fall from grace with certain drivers over the years in Formula 1 who are pushing for that top drive, but ultimately kind of there are their own Achilles heel to it. But no, I think for me, Raikkonen has too much experience. If he does have a bad reliability kind of season, then Giovinazzi could easily beat him. But I just think Kimi Raikkonen, he just knows more about Formula 1 than what Giovinazzi does. I think Giovinazzi, he's not really a driver that strikes me as an up-and-coming talent. He's a decent driver, but I don't know, he doesn't strike me as a world champion-esque kind of driver. So for me, I think Kimi Raikkonen could just edge him out in 2020. But I could be proven totally wrong with this, but let's see how he does in 2020. Again, only a couple of weeks away. Lyle, you said agree to this one. What's your reasons why?
Well, Kimi, I mean, he's one of a million. He really, really is incredible. One of the best athletes I think Formula 1 has ever seen. To be at this age and still in Formula 1. I agree completely. He's got no pressure. We've said that for a long time. Since he left Ferrari, he's got no pressure. He was there. He couldn't really do a bad job at Alfa Romeo. He really, really couldn't. I mean, of course he could, but even if he did bad job, yeah, people could say, he's old. He doesn't really have to be there. But if he does a great job like he did last year, people absolutely love it, and obviously people do love Kimi nonetheless. Going to Giovinazzi, one of the things that really pushed him forward last year was the Ferrari seat. He was in a very good position to be in that Ferrari seat, and I said to you, and I've been sitting on a rumour a little bit, that he is going to go to Ferrari. Of course, that's still possible, and also it still can happen, in this kind of lifetime. Carlos Sainz could be dropped, Charles Leclerc could be dropped, for example, but it doesn't look like that. And now that those two have been signed, or Carlos signed, You know, it looks like it's going to be
Terrible.
like that for a very, very long time. It does look like that. It's going to look like they're going to be the partnership that's going to go a very, very long way in Ferrari's history. I think even I don't really want to say it, and again, you know, I'm going to probably say about 6 years at least, maybe even more. It's going to be a long time. I just don't want to see those two leaving now. I think they've found who they want now, especially in Charles, but also in Carlos. So Gio was really pushing for that Ferrari seat, and of course he still is. Last year he was, and I think that's what really spurred him on. Like, I've got to do well in this car, but also I've got to beat my teammate, the man who, yes, he's very experienced, but, you know, people expect me to beat him. So Gio had that pressure on him. But now that Carlos Sainz has gone to Ferrari, or has been signed by Ferrari, Gio now thinks, well, unfortunately I can't go to the team. I possibly can in the future, but that pressure's now gone off him a little bit. But of course now the pressure is still there that he needs to perform in Formula 1 to stay. There's a point that leads a little bit onto that in a little bit. But, you know, he was already there to prove to people that, yes, he's Italian. You know, I mean, in the world of Italian Formula 1 drivers, and teams do obviously very well, but in drivers it's a little bit iffy. But I'm here, I'm Italian, I get a good support at Monza, and I'm here to obviously take that seat off Sebastian Vettel, go up to Ferrari, Italian team, Italian driver. The Tifosi is going to love it. And it didn't work like that, unfortunately. So the pressure is there that he needs to stay in Formula 1 and do well and beat his teammate, but the pressure is off him a little bit for that Ferrari seat. And those factors, you know, alongside Kimi is, yes, he is getting, I know he said he's getting on a little bit. He's getting on a lot of it now. And yes, it was a good season last year, but now we've got to be looking at Kimi Raikkonen and saying, oh God, the form has unfortunately got to slip away from you just a little bit. I'm not saying Kimi has to be bad for Gio to beat him. I'm just saying that, like, yes, Kimi is better than Giovinazzi, but Kimi slips down a little bit. The team reins are given to Gio just a little bit more, you know, from the team. You know, people in that team look at Gio and think, right, he's now the team leader instead of looking at, you know, good old Kimi. And that's what will push him to do well this year. If he beats Kimi, it's going to look great for him in staying in Formula 1 and going and looking, you know, forward, possibly going to Ferrari. But if he's beaten by Kimi again this year, when we do look at Kimi now as like every single year that, you know, that graph is, he is slipping down because, of course, he's getting older. I mean, what is he now? I think he's 40, 41. Amazing athlete, of course, you know, to be in this situation, to be this old and still be performing at the way that he is. It's incredible. But yes, he is on the down just a little bit. You know, nothing against him. I'm just saying, of course, he's not going to be as fast, you know, as the younger guys are. I mean, he's even running rings around Lewis Hamilton when it comes to age. You know, so obviously we think he's one of the oldest guys in Formula 1 now, you know, 6-time world champion, but you know, he just needs to beat Kimi this year. He really, really does need to, and I think that he will. And I think his aim is still to climb Formula 1 and one day get to Ferrari. But that pressure is gone off him just a little bit, because obviously Carlos is in the team. But that being said, though, the motivation might go a little bit as well. You know, we might be looking at Gio thinking, right, well, Carlos has taken the seat. There's not really anywhere for me to go in Formula 1 anymore. Yes, of course, I can go to other teams. I can go to Renault, for example, which, of course, everyone's after that seat now. But it's like Gio at Renault, you know, it's not really why I want to be in Formula 1. I look at him being Italian, and yes, I might be just guessing a little bit because he is Italian, but I'm looking at him and I'm just saying, you have Ferrari written all over you and you want to go to Ferrari, and I'm not going to be happy until I am in that scarlet red in front of the Tifosi. Anyway, moving on to the my second statement, the third of the episode, and this one comes in from @Beth Smith, or Beth, and she says, rookies deserve a minimum of a 2-year contract so they have a chance to prove themselves before being dropped. I love what she says, before being dropped, as in, like, it's just going to happen after 2 years. You know, like 1 year, fair enough, but 2 years is going to go. Obviously meaning that sometimes drivers just don't get a chance. You know, 20 races or whatever is not enough. But to that, I'm going to say disagree.
Well, guess what? I'm going to disagree with you, Lyle, because I'm going to say agree.
I'm loving this. We're
divided today.
We've gone against everything. This is what I want. This is what I said in the last week's episode. I was like, this is what we need. Anyway, yes, to get to Formula 1 is a pinnacle of the sport, and of course people do need a lot more time in the sport. We've seen drivers being dropped before. We've also seen drivers being dropped from teams as well. And, you know, obviously it is a bit of a gamble going to Formula 1. It really, really is. It might not just be from their driving. It might be from the car performance. If it is a car performance, it is incredibly unlucky because sometimes people have been in cars, for example, Brendan Hartley, Toro Rosso, when it's just not like performing the way that you want it to go. There's a lot more examples as well, but there's been a lot of rookies over the years that have been dropped. It is a bit of a shame when things like the car happens, but when it is the drivers, they know, because it's Formula 1, that they need to be at the top of their game as soon as they get in the car, and every single race needs to be the best over their performance. Also as well, I mean, teams, do they really want to offer a 2-year contract? It's like anybody really. I mean, you just like a new footballer at a team. He's not going to be signed. He's only going to be signed for a year. He's going to be given a little contract, little money, little buyout to no buyout clause, as in the team can just say, right, get out. It's very similar to. I know he wasn't a rookie when he went there because he had a successful season. Actually, no, he didn't, because it was Pierre Gasly. A good example in this, went to Red Bull Racing. They offered him, I think it was a 1-year contract, but it was an easy buyout clause, very little money involved in this, very little risk, because they had a little inkling in the back of their mind that just said he wasn't going to be a good driver for us, and we are really testing out the water. Again, Alexander Albon, 1-year contract, and you can say he was a rookie as well, because that happened exactly in his 1-year season. They did give him another contract, so they are giving him another chance. But it really is just, you've got to get into Formula 1, you've got to perform like from the gun, from the Australian Grand Prix, from the green light in FP1 in Australia, or even in winter testing. Even before you get in the car, you have to be performing to the best of your ability and show that team that you are worth that 2-year contract. Because if you get signed for a 2-year contract, your first year might be viewed by you as a little bit of I'm going to kick my heels a little bit, I'm going to warm up to the car, I'm not really that bothered. Do you know why? Because I've got another year on board. I can, Christmas this year is going to be perfect, because I'll be sitting here at the end of my season knowing that I have one more season left. And the teams just don't want to do that. Maybe from a psychological point of view, it might help them, because if they have 1 year, like, right, you're going to be in the car now, but at the end of Abu Dhabi, the 55th lap in Abu Dhabi, you could be driving around that track knowing, that's it, I might never be driving a Formula 1 car again. And to be honest, you won't be. You will be out of contract. And that's the thing, you might have had the best season of your life, but you will still be out of contract. And it might just push the drivers just a little bit more. But obviously, that's only my opinion. I do agree that they need to prove themselves. And it just comes back to the first statement that I made about the car. If the car is not good, that's when the driver can sweat a little bit. He can be the best driver in the world, but if the car's bad, then he won't have the greatest results. That one's a little bit of a sticky wicket. But other than that, I think the driver needs to perform the best, both physically and mentally. And I think if he gets a 1-year contract, that is going to push him to his best. Jordan, thankfully, 3 out of 3 you disagree with me.
Yep.
And say agree. Why do you think drivers need a 2-year contract in F1?
Well, firstly, if you offer a driver a 1-year contract, if you offer a rookie a 1-year deal, it just adds even more pressure to that particular driver. So now some drivers can deal with pressure better than others. Not every driver is the same. So if you have a driver who deals with pressure quite good, you've got yourself a really decent, talented driver. But like I said, not everyone is like that. So if you employ a driver and you give him a 1-year deal, prove yourself. That could kind of get them to overperform themselves and kind of trip over themselves, just like I was referring to earlier, because you've got the whole like, can he deliver? Can he, like, you've got everyone going like having question marks over you, like there could be a really decent driver, but all that could go out the window because you've got this 1-year deal on your back. You've got 1 year to prove yourself, and it just could add an extra bit of pressure that is not necessarily needed. If you get offered a 2-year deal, you've got that relaxation of, I'm here next year. Of course, if you have a really abysmal season, the chances are you might not be, because just because you've got the contract, it doesn't guarantee you're going to be there next year. It just gives you that you've got the best. You're pretty much in prime position to be there next season, of course, because you've got the 2-year deal behind your back. So if you have like that, like I said, 2-year deal, you've got a 1 season to get adjusted to the life of Formula 1, because it's much different to Formula 2. The cars are different, the media's different, the fan base is different. So there's a lot to kind of take in and digest. If you're from like a Formula 1 background, if your dad's a Formula 1 driver, let's say, back in the day, you've got a kind of an idea as to what it's like because you were brought up with it. But if you aren't, then you're not really familiar to that. So there's a lot to like I said, to take in the world of Formula 1. So find your feet, get settled with the team, with the car, have it to how you want it. And like I said, that relaxation of, okay, I can perform, let's see what I can do. And all right, yes, there is going to be pressure. It doesn't matter how long the deal is. It could be a 10-year deal. You're still going to have pressure because it's Formula One. It's a big step. So, but like I said, I think drivers could see a better performance if you give them a 2-year deal over a 1-year deal. Now, we have been quite lucky to see some rookies come into the sport and just take it like a duck to water. Like, it's been brilliant, like Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, George Russell. It's been really, really good to see these rookies and to see them staying for another year. So, it's brilliant. But obviously, back in the day, we would see a drivers come into a team and then they'll be gone the following year. Again, not all of them are down to reasons. Financial backing is a big thing in Formula One. So, if you lose that, then your contract it doesn't matter anymore. If you lose your backing, like Sorokin did, for example, prime example, let's say, if Sorokin lost his backing and he was gone, so, and obviously I think he had a 1-year deal, but Sorokin, what could he do? What could he have done in that piece of rubbish that is the 2018 Williams? And again, like, if you employ a driver and they are fairly decent, but they do a bad performance in a bad season in a bad car, then it's like, well, all right, we're going to drop you. It's like, well, no, because what more did you want me to do? I mean, I know he wasn't a rookie, but Perez going to McLaren, he had a bad year and he was dropped after a season, but the car was terrible. What did you expect him to do? You know what I mean? So, but obviously that's for a different debate. But there will be times where we will see a driver come into the sport and they just don't deal with the pressure, or they might have an alright season or whatever, but then they're dropped for a different driver, let's say, who does have money, or in their eyes is the better driver. I think Sauber back in the day they were a team that employed like 3 or 4 different drivers, which was just overcomplicating things. So that could possibly happen again. So, but no, I like I said, I agree. I totally agree. I think we do need to see a driver have 1 year to get themselves settled, then another year to perform, and if they don't perform in the second year, then albeit just let them, maybe move them on to another year, or employ a driver with experience, or even another rookie, and maybe a one that has won the Formula 2 championship before, and to see how they take it, and if they take it better than the previous driver did. So the next opinion comes in from the Pit Kid. Very, very cool name, that. He says, I think this might cause bit of a controversial stir in the comment section. He says, tracks like Silverstone and Spa are overrated.
Wow.
They barely ever throw up good races. I much prefer Baku or Interlagos. Oh, of course, everyone is entitled to their own opinion. So that is a good one though, because I rarely hear that. But I'm sorry, Pit Kid. I'm gonna have to disagree with you.
What? Pit Kid? What are you on? Honestly, I'm sorry, but like, do you even like Formula One? And also as well, it's just Baku in Interlagos. They're not even the same kind of tracks. Baku is this brand new street circuit. It's a street circuit in a country that's never thrown any Formula One like into us ever. Interlagos is one of the oldest circuits in the world, one of the most adored as well. It had amazing Brazilian champions, some amazing victors there, an incredible circuit. I mean, they're not even on the same level. But of course, Jordan, that is a 1000% disagree.
Oh, the first one we've agreed on. To be fair, when I seen this, I went, yeah, I think we could both agree on the same opinion on this one. So, all right, for me, not every track, not every race is going to throw up a very good Grand Prix. You know, like some of the best tracks, like, you know, Monza, a lot of people say that's quite overrated. It's like, yeah, all right, it doesn't produce good racing every single year, but one, it's a classic. It's been on the calendar since day dot, and the fan base is incredible. All those little things just add in like a special place in your heart for tracks like, you know, Monza and stuff like that, if it doesn't throw up particularly good racing. Especially Monaco is the one that kind of divides people's opinions, because it doesn't throw up good racing, but it's Monaco. So that kind of thing. But Silverstone and Spa, those two for me are two of my favourite tracks. I mean, Spa is incredible. It really is. It's an absolute brilliant track. It's fast, it's uphill, and it's quick, very, very quick. And it like pretty much like what I said about Monza, it's been on the calendar since the very beginning. It's had a couple of years out for refurbishments and stuff, but it's still it's an absolute classic in Formula One. We've had some amazing races over the years, but again, like every track, there's been races where it doesn't throw up any good Grand Prix. 2019 was an alright race, so was 2018 and stuff. So yeah, I mean, not every race is going to be great. Silverstone is very hit and miss, but that it's quite like Spa in a way where it's a classic track. It's quite flat, I would say, compared to what Spa is. Like there's not really many uphill or downhill sections at Silverstone, but still though it's got long straights. It's a wide track. It's got long corners, fast corners. It's one of the longest tracks on the calendar, but it's about 10 seconds quicker on a lap than Spa, and the differences between Silverstone and Spa in terms of length is quite. It isn't that far away, which I was very surprised when I learned that. But because Silverstone has quicker corners than Spa, the lap time is like 8-10 seconds difference. But 2019 Silverstone was not a brilliant Grand Prix because we were there, but it was a brilliant Grand Prix overall. There was drama, there was crashes, there was brilliant overtaking. You had the battle between Max and Charles, Max and Seb, Gasly as well. He got involved. Hamilton and Bottas going toe to toe. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of race Silverstone can produce. And you know, I'm surprised you actually said that they're overrated. I don't think they're overrated. I mean, for you guys might think this, but nah, I don't see them being overrated whatsoever. Like I said before, the wide tracks, the quick tracks, brilliant for overtaking, and not only that, the classic tracks on the F1 calendar. Lyle, can you elaborate more on what I've just said?
Well, I can't get off it. Baku and Interlagos. I mean, what you?
I mean, actually, I'm gonna add something in as well there. For me, Brazil and Baku are good tracks. Brazil, because again, like earlier, it's a classic track. Interlagos. It's a very short circuit, but that has thrown up some really, really good Grand Prix. The fan base are passionate there, and I think Brazil deserves to stay in Formula One, especially Interlagos. Yeah. But there are rumours it could be going to Rio de Janeiro, which I hope it doesn't, because like I said, the Interlagos track is brilliant. Baku it's grown on me. Baku, I love that track. I love the back straight going down towards start finish straight from the last corner to the first corner. You can get a brilliant slipstream on there, and that produces some really good overtaking. Like the end for the 2017 race, was it Stroll or Bottas that was going to finish in second place? And look, it was Bottas, because Bottas pipped him to the line, but like drama till the very end, and that's what I really, really like. You had the twisty last sector, then of course the castle section. I am stupid, and like I really do like Baku. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but for me, I'm a big fan of it. So those two tracks are really good. But if I had the choice between Spa and Silverstone and Interlagos and Baku, I would choose Spa and Silverstone all day long.
I think it's just a thing that like it sounds similar. They're not similar, not at all. I do like them as tracks, but they're not similar at all. Interlagos is untouchable in terms of the world scale. It's untouchable. You can't like move at all. Baku, fair enough. If somebody said to us, yes, that could be leaving the calendar. Of course, we've had tracks before that I've loved. Sepang, even the track in India in Delhi. Incredible. But I feel they have to go eventually. If Baku did, I wouldn't be too bothered. But it's a good cert, as John said there. Mainly just for the racing, and obviously Interlagos untouchable. Silverstone also isn't something that like. It's just untouchable. It's the home of Formula One. It really, really is. I mean, you look at like some of the biggest venues in the world. Of course, it's probably not on the same. Actually, no, it would be. So, to a rugby fan, Twickenham is like the birthplace of rugby. Of course, rugby came from rugby in the UK, but Twickenham is the home of rugby. It's the home of England, but it's just the home of rugby. And you say to someone, "You're going to take that out. We're not going to play rugby there." It's massive. It is the home of just. It's like the holy temple of anyone who's ever held a rugby ball. It's incredible. Silverstone is untouchable because that's where the first Grand Prix was. It's an incredible circuit. They have made it into a massive gem, especially when you used to think that it used to be an abandoned, or used to be a World War II airfield, then an abandoned airfield, and then changed it into a racetrack. They even did incredible renovations, as when you think about it, obviously from the kind of the oval, semicircle kind of run that obviously was ran before 2010, before they made the renovations into what we know is today. It's actually incredible. You can walk around that renovations as well. It's an amazing circuit. It's old. It's got the heritage. It really is untouchable. It's an incredible circuit, and I know we said before Monaco, it's old, it doesn't have a great racing, but it is Monaco, it's the oldest track. That's what makes it untouchable, really. Mm-hmm. We can't have Formula 1 ran by these new circuits. New teams, new fans, fair enough, but just not new circuits. We need some of that heritage left. Otherwise, we're going to get round to this 70-year anniversary, and like the 70-year anniversary video game, which is coming out in a few weeks' time, and none of these old circuits are going to be there. 70 years. Doesn't matter. We're going to be looking at the brand new circuits. Those are just untouchable races. They really, really are. Mainly for the heritage, but also they have good races, and we really do. If you win at Silverstone, or if you win at Spa, you are a god. And also if you win at Monza, which a certain Charles Leclerc has done, of course not Silverstone last year, but he had a good run at Silverstone, won at Spa, then won at Monza, won at Spa, the race that we're talking about as well. It shows it's an incredible event. It's it's the longest circuit on the calendar. It's off camera as well, going through the Ardennes Forest. It's amazing. It's just untouchable, and I feel like I really am repeating myself. It's not overrated. Overrated mean that people talk about when they shouldn't do, because people do talk about it, but it's absolutely incredible. It is the best race ever. I've been lucky enough to go to those two circuits. So we're going to go to Silverstone again in the future. We're trying to go to Spa in the future also. It's just one of those, it's just a mecca of Formula 1 that you need to go to. It's absolutely incredible. And of course, Silverstone and Spa, the two races that we just mentioned there, the 2 of the 4 oldest races in Europe. And if I had to tier them, just quickly, because obviously I've been to all 4, if I had to tier them, I mean, Monaco is good, but I'm probably going to put it in last place. I'm not a massive fan of that, like when I went for the attendance, it wasn't a great. It is expensive to get there. Maybe it is a bit more of a procession. I do agree. I'm not chucking up that much of a fuss about Monaco. Maybe it is a little bit of a profession, but it is still a good race. In Monaco, I'm going to put last, but still definitely, not like at the least. It's incredible. Then I'd probably put Monza, then Spa, then of course Silverstone at the top. As I say, there's nothing. Actually, no, I'm going to say that again. Sorry, I'm going to put Monza, then Spa, second place, then Silverstone. Nothing beats Silverstone. If anyone has a problem with Silverstone, come and find me, because I'm like, no, Silverstone has to stay. It's just Formula 1. Silverstone is Formula 1. Silverstone is love. Silverstone is life. It's not going anywhere. So, moving on to my last statement for my side in today's episode. Comes in from Alfie, or at Alfie B63, or B63 even, and he says, Pierre Gasly is actually a better driver than Alexander Albon and deserves a shot at another better seat. He deserves a shot at a better seat, or another seat, I don't know what that was, and he's one of the most talented drivers on the grid. Of course, Alexander Albon is the man who replaced Pierre Gasly mid-season last year in the trading places, part 2 by Red Bull Racing. Alexander Albon went up from Toro Rosso in his first season, in the middle of his first season. He'd only done, I think it's 10-11 races for the Scuderia, and then he went up to Red Bull Racing, demoting Pierre Gasly, who was signed in the previous year after one season at Toro Rosso and thought of the golden child to replace Australian driver Daniel Ricciardo. So, I'm going to say to that, that's a hard one. Can I do what I did a few episodes ago and go agree and disagree, agree and disagree?
You've got to choose one.
That is a real on the fence, that like.
I'm going to say disagree.
Wow. So, Pierre Gasly, loved him. Was a massive fan of him. I have his top. I'm like, right, this is I'm a Red Bull fan. Over any of the drivers, I'm a Red Bull fan. I'm a team fan. And I love everyone that's going to be in the team. And, from our football standpoint, as Jordan will know, whoever comes into our team, I'm like, could be crap. But I'm going to support them no matter what. But Pierre Gasly actually was decent. I thought, they've promoted, obviously Red Bull have gone through Toro Rosso before. They've had some great gems in the past. Want to say Danny Kvyat? Yes, I'm going to say Danny Kvyat because he was good. I don't care what you all say. I'm going to say Danny Kvyat because he was a good driver. So obviously, and then Red Bull did it again. Went through Toro Rosso, picked out a gem to replace Danny Ricciardo. So I'm happy. I'm good. He picked French driver Pierre Gasly, who again has a lot of pedigree in the sport. He was loved. Another French driver. He was given a lot of support and he was sought to be a good driver. Of course, we're not going to go into trading places, but it might have been a little bit harsh by Red Bull, to demote him in the middle of the summer break after Hungary. A few problems here and there, not really big finishes. I think his best finish was a P4, which obviously we saw in Silverstone. He got a few P1s and FP1, if that even matters. And then, of course, ultimately he was dropped for Alexander Albon. A little bit of a fast move by Alex, but an okay drive here and there. We've talked about it before. Sometimes you can say Alexander Albon wasn't given enough time at Toro Rosso and Pierre Gasly wasn't given enough time at Red Bull. But how they stand, and it's a little bit like how I've talked before about Verstappen and Hamilton. You know, of course Verstappen's on a charge, but because of the experience Lewis has, of course he's much better than Verstappen. He runs rings around him, of course he has. It doesn't matter about how they are now, it's about how much experience they have to show that. And I'm not saying that right now that Alexander Albon is more fierce than Pierre Gasly. Of course he's in a better position, he's in a Red Bull when Pierre is now in a Toro Rosso, or an AlphaTauri, sorry. But the experience Pierre Gasly has is better than Alexander Albon. He's been in Red Bull more races, of course, because obviously part 1 of the season is longer than part 2. He's had more races in Formula 1, he's had more experience at Toro Rosso also. He's done a full season with Toro Rosso, and obviously a few races at Red Bull and a few races at Toro Rosso, and Alexander Albon has only had a few races at both teams, so more experience in that way. In terms of the second part of the statement, he deserves another shot at a better team or another team. I'm going to say yes. But I think Pierre Gasly still believes, and I think the best place for him to go, like Danny Fiat, is back to Red Bull Racing. A little bit like Gio, a little bit like how I said with the Italian driver, he really has Ferrari, the Tifosi. He can only go one place, which is the Italian team. I think Pierre, to return to Red Bull, is on the cards. And that's where I'm going to say, that's where I think his final destination is going to be. I mean, of course, yes, if anyone else like Mercedes comes and knocking, he's going to obviously say yes, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen. I do think Red Bull is his next place to go. I think it's a good place to go. It's also redemption, again, like we said with Danny Fiat, but definitely an amazing driver, definitely good. That is where I'm going to say agree or disagree. The title of this episode, the title of this series, because I'm like, Alexander Albon is a good driver, Pierre Gasly is a good driver, but that's just it. They're both just good drivers. They are both very, very, very good. And I don't want to upset anyone's feelings. I don't want to say Alexander Albon isn't as good. I don't know why I say his full name. I should just say Alex. Because I have a lot of faith in him. And, you know, if my love for Gasly in the team has just shifted to Albon, and not 1% is being gained or dropped. Like, if I love Pierre Gasly 50%, and I love Verstappen the other 50%, I now love Verstappen 50% and Alexander Albon 50%. Like, it hasn't changed. And I both believe in both of them. And I think, to be honest, I know this isn't the question, but I think Red Bull made a great choice in both drivers, at least having them in the team for just a little bit of time. But I do agree that Gasly is a great driver. One of the best on the grid, one of the most talented on the grid. So for that, yes, I'm going to say agree. But is he better than Alexander Albon? It's a disagree. But that's not saying that Alex is better than Pierre. Oh, it's a long one, Jordan. I can go on all night. Anyways, so what do you think about that? Of course, both drivers at Toro Rosso and Red Bull Racing. What do you think? I forgot what you said now. Did you say agree or disagree?
I said disagree.
You said disagree.
Yeah.
So, yes, why do you think Alexander Albon is better than Gasly? What do you think of Gasly? And yeah, I think it's a good statement, this, but as I say, I'm going to be here all night, so take it away.
Well, first of all, I think Alexander Albon proved that it wasn't the car that let Gasly down. Like, Gasly let himself down when he moved to Red Bull. It just didn't work from essentially testing, let's say. There was a lot of pressure on Gasly, which he didn't really deliver. Of course, he didn't, and it was a real shame because he did do okay at Toro Rosso. All right, he had Brendan Hartley as his teammate, who didn't really put up a fight, so maybe it made Gasly look better than what he already was. But Gasly did have a good run in Super Formula, missed out on the championship because of a typhoon, and then of course I think it was GP2 champion in 2016, I think it might have been. I could be wrong with that. I think it's 2016. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 16. So proven, he's a race winner. He can cope in those kind of situations, but maybe the Red Bull drive came at the wrong point in Gasly's career or the wrong time for him, because it was so sudden. Ricciardo leaving to go to Renault, that they chose Pierre Gasly to replace him, which I think it was a no-brainer at the time. So Red Bull said, 1 year than what we would have liked. Get him in. It didn't do that well. I'll stand by this and say Gasly should have been given the full season. But he didn't do well, and Red Bull want a driver who can deliver every single week. For me, half a season is not enough for a driver to prove himself. Gasly could have done what Giovinazzi did and done better in the second half of the season. That's what I was expecting. If he hadn't done well in the second half of the season, all right, then fair enough, give somebody else a chance, because Red Bull want two drivers who can score consistent points. Verstappen, of course, can. The other driver needs to. Albon did that when he came into Red Bull at the end of 2019. So this season, it's going to be key for Albon to prove to Red Bull that he can get them results. If he can't, then maybe, I don't know, then maybe, is it something about that second driver's seat? Is it being Verstappen's teammate? Is that the problem with drivers? Who knows? And I think for me, Albon, he's only been in Formula 1 for one season. He's been half the season with Toro Rosso and half the season with Red Bull. I want to see him this year in 2020 from start to finish and see how he does. Then I've got a better inkling as to where Albon stands and Gasly stands, because I don't really know who's better, because Gasly's been around for longer in Formula 1 and in the lower categories, and Albon, he's only been in there for one season. Again, like Gasly, I think Gasly was dropped, then reinstated in the same way that Albon was. Was Gasly dropped at any point? I don't think he might have been, actually. Rare occasion. But you know what I mean? So obviously Albon was out, then he came back in again. So and he delivered. He didn't show any signs of weakness or anything. So maybe that's Albon's strength and Gasly's weakness. So we'll just have to see we'll just have to see. But I think, but for me, Albon, at this moment in time, he has proven that it wasn't the car, and it kind of proven that it was Gasly, that himself was his own worst enemy. But I think this opinion could become more clearer at the end of 2020, and we'll see where Alexander Albon is. So, the final opinion for today's agree or disagree, and we've saved the best till last. It is, of course, the title of this video, and maybe one that you guys were very eager to get to. So here we are. It comes in from Fake Cookie Monster, which is a brilliant name for starters. He says, Fernando Alonso is the most overrated driver ever. Well, talk about opinions. Whew. I mean, where do we start? I'm going to say disagree.
It's a hard. I'm gonna say disagree also.
You're gonna say disagree also. Right. So now I understand why people don't necessarily like Alonso, because he's arrogant. He thinks he's better than the team, and he's got that kind of oh, look at me kind of attitude, and people don't like that. But if you take, I've said this before, if you take all that away from what people have said behind the scenes, what he's like, and what he's like with you know, how he is vocally with Formula 1, for me, brilliant driver, really good driver, worthy of his world championships with Renault. He showed promise in his younger days with Minardi and of course Renault. He went to McLaren. He clashed, of course. He got beaten by Lewis Hamilton, and that's kind of where the cracks started to show for Alonso. He went to Ferrari as a brand new start. How he didn't win in 2010, I do not know. Actually, I do know. Petrov. He should have won a title at Ferrari, but that's the thing. But we're not talking about Alonso behind the scenes. We're talking about Alonso as a driver, and from what he did in 2012, how did he get that car into a world championship winning position? Or on the brink of it anyway. Of course, he failed to do so, but in a time when the McLarens were strong. Unreliable, of course, but still strong and quick. And so were the Red Bulls. And Red Bull had a topsy-turvy year, so did McLaren, and so did one Ferrari in a way. Alonso carried Ferrari in 2012, and he didn't buckle under the pressure. He went all the way to the bitter end. He rejoined McLaren in a very, very tough time with McLaren Honda, 2015. Toxic atmosphere, maybe, because Alonso was I'm the team leader. What say it goes. He tried to become almost his own team principal in a way, and I think him and Ron Dennis kind of clash on that front because they're both kind of similar personalities. And I thought Alonso did an alright job with what he had. He managed to score points in 2015. He did alright in 2017. And I think if you had another driver in that car, I mean, not like a Lewis Hamilton, let's say, but let's say I don't know, an Alexander Albon or a Pierre Gasly, just as we were talking about before, I don't think they would have done nowhere near as good of a job as what Alonso did. He's got the skills, he's had the pace, and I thought for me he should have been at least a 5-time world champion. Did he let himself down? No, well, I don't really know. 2010, of course, he had accidents. Things happened to him. Ferrari kind of screwed him over a little bit. And, of course, McLaren was just it was just a horrible era, but still. And even his skill in Baku in 2018, when he got that car on a it was damaged. The right-hand side was punctured, both tyres. He managed to get from, turn 2 or turn 3, all the way back round, without any damage, pitted, and off he went again. It was incredible, which just proves Alonso's skill. So as a driver, I don't think he's overrated, not whatsoever. I wouldn't say the most overrated driver ever. I don't know who I would say is the most overrated driver ever. Again, let us know in the comment section below what you think. I can't say at this moment in time, but I think Alonso is, for me, a decent driver. Should have been a world champion. He wasn't a world champion. Is he one of the best? No. In my opinion, I don't think he's up there with the greats, but I think he's in the category below, where like he's in the good category, or maybe the great category, not like the legendary category. I would say great category for me. Lyle, what do you think?
Well, I mean, firstly, he's a world champion. I mean, of course, world champions are always going to get so much more hype than sometimes they might deserve, or some people might think that they have. Alonso, I mean, of course, is divided a lot of people. I think it's just a few of the things that he's done in his career just show that he might not be worthy of like the Formula 1 grade, for example, or the people say that he might be the GOAT or that he's one of the best. McLaren 2007, massive era for that. Even though it wasn't his fault, it was just a toxic relationship with McLaren that he had in that year. Of course, Crashgate with Renault in 2008. His bad relationship with Renault after he won the 2 championships, his fallout of Fabio Briatore, and kind of the collapse of Renault at that time around. He was seen as a little bit of he needed all of this attention and all of the team leads when, like, for example, Germany 2010, Fernando was faster than you. Things like that just don't need to be said. There was no reason why Felipe couldn't win that race and Fernando had to stay behind. But for me, it's mainly the fallout with Ferrari, or when he left Ferrari because of the terrible V6s, couldn't give it any chance, went to McLaren. As Jonah said there, exactly, the team leader, he stamped his authority down on a team that, remember, he's had toxic relationships with before. He came in this team and he thought who's Jensen? I can beat Jensen. McLaren, one of the most successful teams on the grid. Are they successful as Ferrari? Well, I drove for Ferrari, so no, I'm better than McLaren. I'm better than anyone, and I'm taking over this team. I'm the boss. And he wasn't. And everything Fernando said on the radio just seemed to be a complaint. Actually, I've been watching quite a lot of the 2017 replays of races, and every time Alonso's little banner comes up that he's going to talk, you can just see him, he's ready to complain about something. He's ready to say, and to be honest, he is as well. And this isn't just me having a go. I mean, he is. A lot of things just are him. He wasn't happy with the tyres. He wasn't happy with the Honda engine. Okay, fair enough. You're obviously not. But he didn't hear Jensen get a say of that. He just got on with it. He showed that he is a team player. And I'm sorry, but Fernando just didn't. He left on toxic relationships. I don't think it was the best. I think a lot of people were sick of Fernando when he did retire from Formula 1. It was kind of like right, well, do you know what? You've outlived Jensen, which we can't really believe. We thought Jensen was a much better character. Not saying driver, character. Jensen was a better character than Alonso. Alonso was slipping down a little bit, and he was kind of also bringing Stoffel and McLaren down with him a little bit. And I think when he left, I think a lot of people were like, finally Alonso's gone. But that's not to say that Alonso wasn't a great driver back in the day. I think a lot of that has been overtaken. Alonso, the second half of Alonso, if you like, the last stage. To be honest, right, since 2012, if we just talked about, I think from 2001 to 2012, that was kind of the first chapter of Fernando Alonso, if you like. Or maybe even a bit before, 2010 when he first went to Ferrari. And then the second part of Alonso is 2013 onward. So obviously through for the last 2 years with Ferrari and McLaren, not very good. And I think Alonso, part 2 has overtaken Alonso part 1 in kind of people's thoughts about him. They don't remember he's a 2-time world champion. They just remember this really annoying, yappy Spaniard on the radio. And I think that's why I think some people can think that he's not a great driver and he's not the best on the grid. He wasn't the best on the grid. And to be honest, he isn't one of the best. I think he isn't one of the best. He's obviously he's not one of the greatest. He is one of the best, and he will be remembered for what he's done. A 2-time world champion. But as I say, I think it's mainly just what he left Formula One with. This image of Fernando, the GP2 engine, and just complaining on the radio, and not the best driver with McLaren his second time around. But nevertheless, Jordan, I do think that he is still a good driver, 2-time world champion. I did say at one point that he would be in that Renault seat. So no, I think Fernando is a good driver. I've forgotten the original statement now. I think it was overrated. Yeah. I don't think he's overrated at all. He is hyped up a lot. And of course, he has a lot of fans.
Yeah.
And yes, he does not deserve to be up there with Hamilton and Schumacher and even Sebastian Vettel. He doesn't deserve that. Because I think even they're all better. Even Vettel, who, we've all had our views about the certain German. But definitely a good driver, and definitely in his Renault days, in his early Ferrari days, one of the best. And as you just said there, Jordan, the 2012, what he did in that car was absolutely incredible. Jordan, Alonso, good driver, but there we go, that's my views. But it's been a great episode, like always, guys. You've been crushing it with these, and absolutely loving these statements, and it just ever closer to the actual start for the season in Austria, Jordan.
Yeah, looking forward to it as well. Obviously, I absolutely love making agree or disagree. So you're hearing your guys' opinions as well. Me and Lyle deliberating what's good. What do we think about what your opinions are? And of course, as always, thank you so much to everyone who has sent in their opinions. Like I said at the start of the episode, but this is where we're going to wrap up agree or disagree for this week. Thank you so much for watching. But we've only got one more full week, and then it's race week. Very, very exciting for that Austrian Grand Prix. Formula 1 is nearly back, guys. We will be releasing what is going to be coming up on our channel throughout the course of 2020. Now, we did do this before the real season was supposed to get underway, but we are going to be doing it again because we've got more series added in, just so you guys kind of know where we're at. And of course, we have gained a couple of more subscribers since then. So, guys, thank you so much for watching. Of course, if you're new around here, then please like and subscribe as well. Comment below about anything that we've said in today's episode, whether you agree or disagree with everyone's statements, and of course our opinions as well. And keep an eye out on Twitter as well for any posts about agree or disagree for the next couple of weeks. If you want to get involved with agree or disagree, then just post your opinions to us, and who knows, we could choose yours. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Watch what you're doing. Stay safe as always, and until next time, we'll see you later.
See you later, guys.